Welcome back. This is part one of my episode with Jack Almun, a retired mathematics teacher, sky watcher, and Buddhist. Jack and I love to talk, so much so that we actually recorded for almost 2 hours. So I ended up splitting this episode up into two parts. The first one that you will watch in just a second. I cut it where it's felt most natural. It's not perfect, but nothing is. In this episode, we discuss ET encounters through meditation, the concept of serendipity, how deep awareness in the moment can unlock things that you've never experienced before, and Jack relates a few of his ET encounters. Board of directors is a term that I use for the people in my life that are invested in me incorporated to be the most profitable, emotionally, spiritually, and physically. I record some of those conversations. This is one of them. Please enjoy.
I'm doing the math in my head. 30, 35, 40 years ago when I was teaching, I had a group of students in advanced math. We call it at the time, more or less a pre-calculus type thing. And we had a couple, one of my students in particular, she loved writing and she was brilliant at everything. Advanced math, it didn't matter. And that kind of got me interested in poetry and writing in general, but poetry specifically. And she went on to have a great career with ESPN and writing stories for their TV shows. And I got interested in writing poetry then because a couple of those students were. So they would come up when I was having lunch and we would discuss poetry. And I had been to the Monroe Institute and got interested in having spirit guides, maybe similar to your board of directors.
Sure.
That were, I thought they were real in one sense, but they weren't physically real, maybe a different dimension. At any rate, so I loved math and struggled with writing, reading, and so on. And I figured, well, I'll just channel my spirit guides. And I did get some what I thought were poems, and I still have them. I can't remember many of them, but I printed them up for this 3 or 4 of these young students. And they kind of...
How old were these students?
They would have been seniors.
Okay.
So it would be 18. Oh. And I didn't think they made much sense, the poems, but they sort of loved them. And they printed them up in different fonts and on different kinds of paper and made a little booklet. I was so moved because fast forward to like 3 years ago, a couple people at our UUYO church, one in particular, decided to run a poetry group through Mill Creek Park.
Okay.
And I figured, okay, I'm going to revisit my poem. I had done nothing but math and science and different goofy things in the meantime. And I figured, well, I'm going to go ahead and sign up for the course. And it was six or seven of us in the course. And I was just a pre-novice poet.
Sure.
And these other folks were just 2 or 3 quantum leaps above me. And I told them right from the beginning of the sessions that I know nothing about writing poetry except what I shared with you, Joshua, about this channeling of 40 year whatever. So it was a 6-week or 7-week course, 2 nights, so it was something like that. And I did my best, and the goal was everybody write a poem and read it at the end of the course. And during the sessions, I confided in everybody. I said, I would rather do the hardest calculus problem on the planet than write a poem. I said, but I am enjoying it, but you need to know.
Yeah.
It's not my bailiwick. It's not my... And anyway, I thoroughly enjoyed it. And the other 7 or 8 elite people were so kind and gentle and encouraging to me that I still think about it. And so anyway, I'm enjoying hearing your.
I want to, because you kind of glossed over it, your spirit guides. When you first said it, I thought, okay, maybe this is your meditation teacher, or maybe this is, some elder person, but that's not who these spirit guides are.
Right. I got very interested in the early 90s with the Monroe Institute.
I'm not aware of.
Robert Monroe I believe it was in the 60s and 70s, had an out-of-body experience. And he was a very successful business person in the cable TV, in the infancy of cable TV. And he was so overwhelmed with this experience of being out of the body in many, many ways, and went to a psychiatrist thinking, I'm crazy. I've gone off the deep edge. And the psychiatrist did all these different assessment tests on him, and the result was you're not crazy. I forget the word Robert Monroe used, but he said you're just curious about everything and things that are maybe on the fringe from other people's worldview. So Robert Monroe decided, well, I'm going to dive into this, and he started to think about maybe using the out-of-body experience for learning. And he started to think about maybe learning during sleep time and dream time and so on. And he kept going, and he wanted to get into the technology of what was causing the out-of-body experiences. And maybe he could develop the technology, and he developed what is called hemi-sync, in which we play one tone in one ear and a slightly different tone in the other ear, and we subtract those frequencies. I guess it would be hertz or whatever.
Yeah.
Correct. What it is. And then they found the brain would resonate at the subtraction value. So 10 hertz minus 6 hertz, the brain would.
Are you familiar with like binaural?
Exactly.
Okay.
By beats.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Exactly. And as I understand it, Joshua, Monroe felt that different resonating vibrations would cause different behaviors in people. And he thought, wow, maybe if we did this vibration for this group of people, they wouldn't be afraid of going up in front of a group of people to talk.
Sure.
Maybe these people will get help, maybe quitting smoking.
Sure.
And whatever, being more concentrated in their golf, whatever.
Sure. So it's like there's like anxiety, flow state, and things like that. I'm forgetting the other couple because I used to use binaural beats all the time. I put them in headphones on. I was having a lot of anxiety at the time, work anxiety, and I would use them and go to the meditation room at work. We had, of course, was big tech. We had a meditation room. So I go in there, I put my headphones on and do like a 15-minute I wouldn't even call it meditation. I guess you could call it meditation, depending on how charitable you want to be, but just a mental chill out.
Yeah.
And then go jump into another meeting. So he's like a pioneer of that.
Perfect word. Pioneer for hemi-sync and binaural beats and implementing them with other folks. And he developed like a tiny school near Charlottesville, Virginia. And my brother-in-law Stephen Graff was also into this heavily. And he said, Jack, go take a course and go back and report back to me and let me know what happened. And the name of the course was The Gateway Voyage, 6 days at the Monroe Institute, 4 or 5 times a day, going into what they call a check unit and doing what you said with headphones and listening to hemi-sync guided tapes. And then after 45 minutes in your little check unit, you go down with the rest of the people, was usually between 20 and 30 other participants.
Okay.
And you would say, Joshua, here, and to the rest of the group, here's what happened to me. I had this experience and so on. And people would share, and it was very emotional. People would be crying because they had this experience, and others would be euphoric because of this experience, and so on.
Were the people running it, were they trying to trigger those emotions, or was that just the natural, the person, maybe they were going through something or whatever, that was just a natural reaction to the hemisync, that session?
Kind of both. Sometimes a session would be specifically geared towards what you just mentioned, a specific thing. Another time it would be maybe like a free flow. Okay, just play the tape. If you go to sleep and don't remember, that's fine. If you have a dream, if you have an incident that happens, a memory, whatever, that's fine too. And then it was part of the enjoyment for me was the recap when we would leave our little check unit where you were in total isolation and go back into a nice, pleasant room, and then share, here's what happened to me. Mary, what about you? Bill, Joshua, and go around the room and share your experiences. But just to fast forward, after that course, I came back for other courses, and one was called Guidelines. And that's where my spirit guides, many of them came to me out of wherever, either another dimension, who knows where.
Do you have a guess?
I thought probably a combination of all of them. Maybe some were from another dimension, some were maybe just being created in my brain, and the others were being tuned into by my brain. So from another dimension, maybe into the receivers in my brain, and then to my consciousness. And then other spirit guides are, for example, one is, I believe, connected with Ralph Waldo Emerson. And I've got 10 that I'm familiar with, 10. And so that would be my better board of directors.
Okay.
So board of spirit guides.
Okay.
Would be my way of saying it.
That's interesting. I think that we had a previous conversation where we talked about all the things that we can't perceive that are right in front of us or in this room with us. And that's kind of why I wanted to see what these spirit guides were, whether or not they're just kind of floating in and out and maybe just whisper in your ear, or, touch you in some way that transmits a message or a feeling or a thought. I am totally open to that. I would say that I believe in serendipity. I believe there's always a door closes, a window opens. Everything that happens to you, you don't know the reason why it happens. And you may never totally figure it out, but everything for me seems to have worked out okay so far. Not that my life has been easy, it hasn't. Not that I haven't, done terrible things and hurt people. I'm a human. And I wonder if serendipity is one of those things that just is kind of like it's like a breeze on the ocean that just kind of pushes the boat along,
Yes.
A guiding hand. And when I'm approaching things like this, I don't know if you call it like metaphysical or mystical or spiritual. And when I start to go down that road of thinking these things about these guides, about serendipity, this angel, whatever it is, then I start trying to claw back definition. No, what? No, Tell me what to do. Give me my marching orders. And in previous conversations with Joseph, that's kind of, I was being very forceful with them, like, no, you tell me what to believe, and I'll make up my mind whether I want to do that or not, but you come down concretely. And it's like very, very hard to nail down. And I realized that that's my initial reaction. Once I start to kind of meditate on those things, I want very concrete. And so maybe that's why I have a physical board, because it's a interaction that feels like something that I can either go, okay, you're right, you're telling me to do this thing. There's no ambiguity. Joshua, buy gold. Or, so wake up early and go to the gym. Cut this person out of your life. Whatever it is, they'll give me an answer, even if the answer is an answer that I come up with while I ramble on over coffee for 2 hours with you, and then on the drive home go, oh, okay, this is what I'll do. But I wonder how you're deeply involved with Buddhism, and I wonder how those things kind of work together, or how you see these spirit guides. I'm really curious as to, is it an offshoot of your spiritual practice that you've been so curious about these other things, that you've found the serendipity in going to the Monroe Institute, being open to these types of experiences, channeling mathematically poetry? Is it which came first, the chicken or the egg? And
Oh my goodness, that's a great question for me. I've always been interested in the paranormal, metaphysical, you use that word, things out on the fringe. When I was maybe 8 or 9, my grandparents got the first color TV on our street.
oh,
I was down there watching TV and got bored, and there was a thunderstorm and went out, and I thought I saw an extraterrestrial craft, and ran in. You got to come out and see. Hurry, it's going to be gone. And they said, well, we'll come out a little bit. We're watching something, whatever. And you're not going to pay attention to a 7-year-old. And so that might have been the seed, Joshua, that started. And later I got into ESP and doing little experiments at home with my
what's ESP?
Extrasensory perception.
Okay.
And I would try to send you, okay, I'm looking at a card, tell me what it is. And I would use my math. That's really interesting. He got 3 in a row, spot on. And I work out that's 1,000,000 to 1. That must be something more than synchronous anyway. So, and through the years, I always had that on the back burner. As much as I love math and the strictness of it, and well, you can't do this. And how can you take the square root of a negative number? And then it came to pass that, yeah, that's an imaginary number. So they work together, the math and so on. And it kept falling down this road of this scientific road, and then the opposite.
Yeah, you're describing exactly how I feel spiritually. Is that I grew up in a very religious household. My mother was very religious. Her father was he was a psychologist. He was a what do they call chaplain in the army. He served 2 tours in Korea, but very, very heavily religiously fundamental. Like, he was one of those, like, he would do like gay conversion therapy. So that's the kind of household that I grew up in. And so everything was very, very strict spiritually, and in all walks of life, right? But spiritually is because of spirituality. And so when I'm wandering into that area, I'm like, no, no, no. It's like your mathematics. It's very strict. This is the way things are. And there's no two ways about 2 + 2 is not 5. And then I get those imaginary, the square root of -1 instances in my head of like, man, I wonder if serendipity is like an angel that just guides me. And I had this thought that, 'cause people talk about like angels and demons, good and evil and whatnot. What if the evil is you just don't listen? Like you just ignore it. And that's the evil. The evil is, it says in the Bible, man is, inherently sinful, all that. What if the sin is you just don't listen? You go do whatever feels good rather than the thing that you need to do. And I find it to be, there's tricks in making yourself accountable to do the things that you should do. I was listening to a podcast on the way to a friend's house yesterday, and he has this trick where he says he gives a friend, say, $500. Hold this money for me. And if I don't do this thing that I'm planning on doing, you donate it to a political campaign of which I would totally disagree with. Log all the redwoods campaign. And you give them that money in my name. And so it forces me to do it. And that's why saying things out loud to people, to this board, I think I should, maybe I start my own business. Maybe I want to compete in a jiu-jitsu tournament. Saying those things out loud and then being held accountable for it. Then if I don't do that thing, if I don't listen to this angel, serendipity, whatever it is, then that's the evil. That's the quote unquote sin. I don't like that word, but I think it's the most apt word to use. Is there's a great quote by, I think it's Frank Sinatra, about, I think he was talking about Kurt Cobain, but it was a rock and roll star who, no, it wasn't, I'm forgetting the other critters. Tony Bennett. Tony Bennett was talking about Kurt Cobain. Tony Bennett, a great San Franciscan, by the way, was talking about Kurt Cobain, and he said he had killed himself, and he said he had sinned against his talent. And I was like, whoa, that's pretty hardcore, but it's something that stuck with me. Just the sinning against your talent, meaning you're not listening, you're not there, and who knows what the true circumstances. I'm not trying to make any kind of political thing about suicide or Kurt Cobain, but in that way that you're not listening, there's where the evil is. You're not accountable to anybody else but yourself in that situation. So, so you go outside, you're 7, this lightning, I'm imagining a lightning storm, trees and wind, that you believe that you saw something. What were kind of the next steps down that path? Because I know that you're still very interested in it, and it's something that you spent a lot of time doing. What were the next encounters or phenomena?
Yeah, I always loved watching the sky and meteor showers and so on. And I got a telescope for Christmas one year and photographed the moon, and went down a more traditional astronomy, and even took a course in astrophysics. And then my brother-in-law, who was one of my board of directors, on my board of directors, was always with me on these different avenues along the journey. Encouraged me to get involved with a group of sky watchers that would go out and try to invite ETs to come in. And I had several real nice encounters. We would choose different places like Mount Shasta, Crestone, Colorado, Outer Banks to have a group get together and then use meditation to try to contact ETs via pure consciousness.
Okay.
That was sort of the foundational axiom, postulate, whatever word you want to use, of the group, where if there are ETs, they would have the same consciousness as we do. And that kind of goes along with Buddhism, the interconnectivity between all beings and things. So we would get in the meditative state, and if you can visualize this, Crestone, Colorado, 1 a.m., perfectly clear sky. The Milky Way is visible to the naked eye type clearness. And in a deep meditative state, probably 30 of us. And I had my eyes closed. Something serendipitous, whatever word we want to use, said, "Jack, open your eyes, buddy." And I looked up, and where I was sitting in the circle was towards the Big Dipper. And the top of the handle, that top star, it wasn't the star, but an object came down from that. Not like you hear some of the reports today, not fast, but just dropped down to the next star and made a 90-degree turn. And slowly went this way to the next star in the Dipper and made a 90-degree turn downward. And then it moved into a parabolic path down towards the Earth. And just fascinatingly disappeared, whether it hit the Earth, whether who knows what. And this was my second training with this group. And one of the protocols was, if you see something, even if you're in a meditation and you're sure of what you're saying, you tell the whole group. And we weren't ever supposed to break silence except for that protocol.
Okay.
And I'm a quiet person, and I'm like your son, Francis. I don't like to talk in front of the big group. But so I didn't say anything. And then our leader rang the bell to end the meditation. And I apologized to everybody in the group. I said I should have said something. I was a little afraid. And I shared what I had seen. And I thought maybe I would get yelled at or something, but I did. And I went to him at our break, and he said, "No, you did the right thing. You weren't sure, so you didn't break everybody else's silence in the meditation." But to me, I was with this group for maybe 8 or 9 years. Joshua, to me, that was probably the most profound thing I saw. And I guess what I liked was about the whole scene was you were doing most of this from a state of meditation, of pure consciousness. And that made the most sense to me. That's what I like about Buddhism, too. It's based on this moment and staying in this moment with your friend Joshua and enjoying every bit of it and not getting too far down into the future, or not clinging to too far back and hanging on to things in the past that are and over with and so on. But yeah, and maybe we'll have to get a group and go out together.
That'd be fun.
It would be fun and get into a meditative state and actually invite the ETs to join us if they feel like it and they're comfortable, like a informal party.
Yeah. I mean, what do you think these, like, what do you think that thing was? And was it a message for you? Because you say it's very profound. And
That's a great question. I thought it was like there was a mathematical concept called Bayes' theorem that everything is either everything is between a 0 probability and a 100% probability. So Bayes' theorem has formulas and everything that you don't actually need. And so this thing that I saw in Crestone, Colorado, I gave a very high percentage of being an actual real extraterrestrial, like 0.9999%. That was real. And then as you get more and more evidence, Bayes' theorem says, well, okay, you can move the needle. You can move it forward to 99.99% or backwards, or, oh, I just read in the Crestone Journal, whatever the newspaper is, that there was a meteor that night, and maybe a meteor fragment did this special thing. And you would, okay, maybe it's only 50% being ET. But I never had any kind of thing in a dream or anything tell me to move the needle. So I thought it was a real physical craft contacting just me. And the leader of the group, when we took the break, told me, he said, you were the only one that saw it. Because I was thinking, well, maybe I'm crazy. Or my eyes are bad or something. I said, no, don't. You were honest about it. You said you were too shy to report it. Blah, 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 blah. He said, the leader said, my inclination is that was ET's just for you, Jack. And that really made my heart feel good, Joshua. I felt good about it. And to this day, I think it was just for me, and not being selfish, but, and here's your proof, buddy. here's your kick the tires proof, whatever the metaphor would be.
right. Well, I wonder, to get back to an earlier idea and something that we've spent a lot of time outside of recording and outside of being on camera talking about, is that they're the things that are right in front of us that we don't see, because, and you just use the term here in the moment with each other, or with this other thing or being, or consciousness, energy, whatever. And that I was thinking while you're talking about back when I was younger, like a teenager, to, you know, would go out into a field with other like hippies, and they would just be playing drums, just meditate on, just bongos and just drums, and just lay out in this field and just look at the sky. And it's a meditation in a way where you're just there in that moment. I never saw anything or whatever. I used to love to look for satellites and just watch them go across the sky and just go, oh my God. And just wave like, hi, if you're looking at me, I'm here. But I wonder if in those moments of being entirely present, you can kind of open up a vision into something else. One time we talked about, I think I asked you if you had taken LSD, and you're like, no. And I was like, well, here's an experience that I had. The thing about when you're on LSD, there's no past or future. It's entirely right in front of you. And I feel, there are things that I've hallucinated where I was like, what was that? What was that thing?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I was on a powerful hallucination. Who knows what it was? I wasn't able to document it, probably even speak it at the time. But I do know that when you're in these transcendent states, that it seems like there the possibility of being open to other things, and other things with you in the room, whether that just be a spectrum of light. That's one of my most powerful experiences. Was I was sitting in a room that I had sat in hundreds, if not thousands. I lived in this house and sitting in this room, and I could just see auras of a table, a plant. And I was like, oh my God, I just completely ignored this thing. Like I had just this deep fascination with, in that moment, a deep fascination with, and really like exploring all the cracks and crevices of this thing, this table with a plant on it. I'd really seen it like I'd seen it for the first time. Like I'd never seen it before. It was the first time. Um, and I wonder if that's where we kind of find all the overlooked things, because in our moments, and I'm probably sure that you can confirm this, even as a deeply practicing Buddhist meditator, that it's very easy to kind of slip out of the here and now, and really easy to think about, oh man, later on I go, golly, I don't know, it's, I gotta do this thing, I don't really want to do it, I'm gonna dread it for 2 hours. And meanwhile, where'd that time go? And I suffer from that. I'll get so down into the past or future that I'll lose days. And my wife will tell me, do a meditation. And I'll be like, I'll do it. I'll do it later. But yeah, I wonder if does the ESP, does that kind of run parallel with a kind of seated meditation that you would do in Crestone? Um, is that kind of the same idea, that you're trying to hit a wavelength with something else or someone else in case of ESP?
Yeah, that's interesting. Our group leader always told us, when we were getting ready for a session and we were getting ready to go into meditation, he said, use any means that you want to get into your meditation. So the depth of meditation was up to you and the way you were trained. And the meditation form that we use in Buddhism is to try to quiet your thoughts and just get to a place where there are no thoughts, and if they do arise, you just let them drift like a cloud. Let them drift away, and you can return to them later. So you're just trying to get totally into the moment with no objective. You're not trying to remember or dream or have an event happen in the type of meditation that, and so that was the type of meditation I was using on these screenings. And then just invite, during that meditative state, you would try to break out of it just a tad to invite the ETs to join the group and minimalize your thoughts. Just focus on that thought. Please come join us if you feel comfortable, if you want to, almost like inviting a friend to a party.
Sure. As someone who, so I have a very poor meditation practice. It doesn't happen a ton. I try to do it with frequency, but I find that the thoughts, like I don't understand the concept of like, here comes the thought, just let it go. I'll be 2 or 3 minutes into this thought and going, oh my God, hey, you're thinking about this thing. Let it go. And I find that incredibly difficult. I can probably go 5 seconds. It's embarrassing to say 5 seconds without getting interrupted by a thought. I've got to do the dishes. Oh man, do we have dish soap? Oh, man, the sink is full. I don't want to do that. I did dishes like I feel like I've been doing them all week. Well, that's because I've been doing a lot of canning, and so I've got to keep the kitchen clean. How many jars of tomatoes do I have in the basement that I canned last week? I don't know if I labeled them right. I better go and check. Well, then I've got to go out to the garden because there's a ton of more produce that needs to come in. I wonder if it's going to rain this week. I should check my phone. Joshua, you're thinking about all these things. Shut up and meditate. I just will go and keep going. And, that's benign, that thought process. A lot of it for me is like self-harming. Like, in that scenario, I didn't label the jars right, or maybe I forgot. You're such an idiot. Like, what's your problem? Get it together, you know, stuff like that. And then I can hear because I use a meditation app. And so there's someone that's talking, but I'm just talking right over top of them. Like, and maybe it's because it's in an app and this person isn't a real person that I've ever met before. So I can just ignore them. But I feel like that is an impossibility for me. And I feel really good if I can do it for, 15 seconds. That will totally change my day. If I can go 15 seconds with just nothing.
I think what you're describing is very normal, though, in our culture, because we do have like multitasking and 50 million, got to get the dishes done. I need to work on that too. And, and, and I think it just takes practice. Our Buddhist teacher recommended to someone who brought up what you just brought up with, try to maybe just shoot for, use your breath and just try to count 10 breaths without interruption, or start with 5 or 3. And then after you get 3 mastered, go up just in increments might be the way to think of it. But I think you're describing just the normal course of action for all of us. And even for people that meditate, you just have to, like you said, you finally catch yourself. Wait a minute, Joshua.
Yeah.
Jack, come on, buddy.
Yeah.
And just be gentle with yourself and whatever metaphor or so clouds or steam or whatever, gentle.
So you just said something that highlights the bigger issue with me than that, is be gentle with yourself. And that's part 1 of my conversation with Jack Almun. I hope you enjoyed it. I will see you again here next time. If you're watching this in real time, it will come out next Tuesday, right before New Year's. I wish you all a happy holiday, and I'll see you soon.